All right, let's talk about central bank digital currencies. Digital currencies, my friends, that's how they are going to track everything that you do. This is their plan. Today, the European Central Bank announcing the rollout of the digital euro. According to Zero Hedge, the rollout will work like this. ECB digital euro potentially available initially to euro area residents, merchants, and governments. The ECB says digital euro could be made available via existing banking apps and euro system app. We are at a tipping point right now, guys, between freedom and fascism. And nowhere is that more evident than the battle over your right to use cash. And give the big middle finger right now to these globalists that want you to move to a central bank digital currency. On this show, and by the way, that you should take heart from that, right? The idea that if we all say, screw you, you are not going to track us, you are not going to use this, we are not going to use this, we are going to use cash. If you tell 5, 10 of your friends, family members, stop using Amazon, stop using whatever, and move to cash and start using it, not just on a 1 day a week, but every day of the week. Use cash. Take cash out and use it. Use it in the system. Stop using credit cards. Stop using, and we can start a groundswell movement to make a change. All it takes is you to tell 10 people, those 10 people to tell other people. Start turning them onto this to make a change, because we are at a tipping point right now. On this show for the past 2 years, we've been warning you about the move to this digital currency, and we are moving away from cash faster than anyone actually thought. Thought it was going to take longer. It's actually accelerating. Now, soon it will become illegal for you to use cash beyond a certain threshold. So there's even words today in England saying, hey, this King Charles, this could be the last monarch on a banknote. No more. Like after him, he could be the last king or monarch ever printed on a banknote. Isn't that crazy to think about? The Bank of England is pushing for the end of cash, calling on King Charles to be the last ever monarch whose face is printed on paper currency. Last week, we heard from the Bank of England that their goal is to remove cash altogether.
You know, which is so funny, because historically, the only reason the Romans got interested in becoming a part of currency, which was trading just fine outside of governments, is because they wanted to brand the Caesars. They wanted to make coins a consistent size so that they could trade them easier without the scales. And they wanted to stamp them with the face of the Caesars. And then eventually they wanted to dilute the metals in order to give themselves more money, which is exactly what they did.
Well, and that's what led to the fall of the Roman Empire, right? Which is the devaluing of their currency. They put less precious metals into the Roman currency.
Right. So a money without a face any longer, there's got to be a metaphor in there. I just can't make it on the fly.
It is
right
amazing, though. And it's amazing that it comes back to the Romans, because I've been thinking a lot about the Roman Empire lately as it relates to the collapse of the dollar, the US dollar. So many similarities to the collapse of the US dollar to what happened in the Roman Empire. And so the devaluing of currency, continuing, and the military expansion, the printing of all of this fake money to expand the military, the Roman Empire, as far and wide as possible. The United States building 750 military bases around the world. And so the USD dollarization is accelerating. That's a separate conversation from what we're having here, but it's all tied together. It's all tied together. So last week, we heard from the Bank of England. Their goal is to remove cash altogether in favor of digital currency. And in the EU, it is now illegal for you to use more than 1,000 euros to pay more than 1,000 euros in cash for anything. Think about that. Oh, you've got a landscaping job at your house and you want to pay the gardeners or whatever to do it, laying new bricks or whatever going to do. $1,000, 1,000 euros, pay them in cash. Sorry, illegal. In fact, not only just illegal, it could be imprisoned for it, fined and imprisoned for it.
Right. They say it is now activity of the gray market.
Yeah, you'd be in the gray market.
You've taken yourself into an illegal place.
Yeah, basically you're going to label you a terrorist now.
And there are a lot of people out there that don't trust banks. I mean, my grandmother, who was German, she did not trust banks. She had cash in purse, buried in a lot of purses in her house when she passed away, because they don't want to trust banks. And you can't fault people for that. So because they don't trust that system, they're now going to be penalized and won't be able to You know, I mean, $1,000 is quite a bit for everyday things, but they do make major purchases sometimes.
Yeah,
Sure.
and why is it up to the government to tell me what is a big purchase or not? Right? Like, who's to set the threshold? Yeah, most purchases are going to be an ice cream cone for $5 or $4 for the kids, you know, getting a couple ice cream cones at the beach or something like that, right? Most purchases with cash is not going to be $1,000, but some of them will be. And shouldn't I be allowed to do that if I want to? Have a few trees removed from the backyard or something, and it's going to cost, and I want to pay them that way? I should be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to tell me how I spend my money, you fascists. And they're going to use fear of terror attacks as the mechanism to control you. That those people that would be using cash in this way are terrorists.
Oh, this will sure stop them.
So in Europe now, if you use cash beyond €1,000, you'll be fined or put in jail. Listen to Christine Lagarde, head of the ECB, the European Central Bank, explain how this will work to protect you against terrorism. Now, this video has gone a bit viral, but the reason it's gone viral is because this was a prank phone call. But the beauty of this prank phone call is that it was a prank, but asking like legitimate questions that elicited straight up answers right out of her mouth about exactly how they will control you. Listen to the back and forth exchange on this live stream where she answers these questions. Watch.
There are many protests in Europe against the electronic euro. What is the reason?
You know, it's the beauty of Europe. It has different positions. If you ask in Northern Europe, for instance, in the Netherlands, they're quite happy to see the e-euro coming. If you ask a young German man, he'll say, yeah, fine. As I said, I don't want Meta, Google, or Amazon to suddenly come up with a currency that would take over the sovereignty of Europe. I don't want a foreign currency to become the currency of trading within Europe. So we have to be ready.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to.
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros. You cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the gray market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But you know, the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, you know, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
So 1,000 euros, you'll be penalized. Like, those are the controls we're putting in place. And you see when she's like, she shoots down the idea of control. She's like, yeah, but this control is good because otherwise the terrorists win. It's all about the terrorists. Because guess what? Apparently we're just surrounded by terrorists. Like, I don't know about you, but every day, like you live your life, are you constantly under threat by terrorists?
Well, and how
No,
are they?
statistically, you are not.
No, you're probably going to slip
you
in the
are not.
bathtub. It's more likely to happen, right?
Right, but it's like, and they're just sending massive amounts of cash. That's like they're just, what are they doing? Walking up to people's houses with cash and saying, here's a big cash payment. Like, you still would send it through some means of like Western Union or something like that. So there's still some kind of tracking in place for the cash.
Well,
That's
Jason
such a
Bourne,
stupid argument.
you know, carries around cash, and
Yeah.
That is true.
yeah. So that kind of character is what we need to.
It's really, really troubling. I mean, you think about they're tying it to the idea that terrorists use cash, or they use like those prepaid like $200, $300 credit cards. So you need to completely upend your life, just like the Patriot Act. We need to have all of your freedoms taken away. You have to take off your shoes now when you go to the friggin' airport because of some jackass who put some liquid in his shoe. You know, like, these are the kinds of things now we have to completely change our lives because some terrorist used a prepaid Visa debit card. What?
It's so crazy. Like, you reminded me of a video that back when I think it was in like 2012 or something like that, there was this whole, the whole see something, say something campaign that like took off for the TSA and all. There was a guy in this video that they're promoting this if you see something, say something, who paid cash for a hotel. And the lady behind the desk is like, he's paying cash. That's very strange. So she called to report that a man paid for a hotel with cash. So this narrative or this idea has been, being pushed since 2012. I mean, I remember that video like
crazy. That's crazy. And and of course, they've been pushing this idea that, if you pay for something in cash, you're crazy, right? We should definitely report that. That is definitely a problem. Here's if you need an example, if you want to understand how CBDCs will control everything you do, this 56-second video by Augustin Karsten explains it perfectly. He is the head of the Bank for International Settlements. Okay, basically the central bank for the central bank, like literally the top. He's like the Jabba the Hutt. He is literally Jabba the Hutt for all of central banking. This and him explaining this. Pay attention to every word that he is saying here. If you need to describe this to anyone in your family, play this clip right here. Watch.
All our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Yeah. So it's all about control. It's all about tracking. It's all about, if you use cash, we can't control that and we can't track it. We want to know everything that you're doing. Let's skip to this George Soros clip here, Philip, which is billionaire George Soros planned all of this. He was telling us all that the current system was broken and that they need to build a new one. He was telling us this back in 2009. All of him and his cronies, all the billionaires getting together, coming up with a brand new system that we are now seeing the fruits of. Watch.
But the system we have now has actually broken down, only we haven't quite recognized it. And so you need to create a new one. And this is the time to do it.
Yeah, this is the time to do it. And they are right now. So the ECB making their announcement today about the rollout of the digital euro and how that will unfold over the next coming months and the penalties associated with that for using cash. And the United States about to do the same thing through executive order, for the President Biden signed in under executive powers to roll out the central bank digital currency in the United States as well.
And I just wanted to mention too, so Chase, Bank of America, several banks just announced this week. I saw it on Twitter. I can't remember the name, but it's something like PayZ or something. So you have the Fed Now system has been saying they were going to come out with that. And what would happen is banks would create an app that their system would send the transactions to the Fed and then back. And so it's kind of coincidental that no coincidence that these banks just announced this, because that's exactly it looks like, is this is going to be the system that you will use with these banks to go to the Fed Now system and then go back to other banks. So it's happening.
Yeah, and the same structure in place with the European Union as well. And they'll model it under convenience. That's what it's all about. It's all about convenience, but it's all about control. So guys, get cash, be smart with cash, and use it as much as you possibly can to tell these yokels that we're not.
While you still can.